No, we were at the LED.
He sold it.
Yes, that's right. I think they're working it out.
But we don't really deal with him, we deal with his attorney and the ranch maker.
Oh, yeah.
Because
They're both brothers of the local guys.
if he doesn't say yes, or we do the
Yes, we're
other items here.
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
So. Oh Lord, we're gonna have to get a lot closer than that. Okay, no. This one says, it literally says, the city of Lovington is attempting to install this app. It just says an app and then it gives a number.
Okay. You want 330?
Would you like to install now or whatever? And I'm like,
Just say not now.
no. Yeah, well, Tony's gonna get a screenshot, so.
Yeah. Yes. Yep, all we gotta do is send it back, because their council said it's gonna take like another act of Congress to get it up through their system.
That came out at noon.
Oh, well, I haven't.
I have yellow and blue.
Yes,
You have
that's the
yellow
latest.
Oh, it's up here. I brought mine.
No, that's old news already.
That's old news.
This is changing by the hour.
Are we ready? Pop up. It's time. All right. I call this special session of the Lovington City Commission to order. Ms. Nora. Roll call.
You're praying. Mayor Roberts,
I am here.
Commissioner Perry's not, Commissioner.
He's on the line.
He's online. He's on the
Oh,
line.
okay. Commissioner Perry, Commissioner Rodriguez,
Present.
Commissioner White. Yes. Commissioner Ramon.
Here.
All right. You'll join us in our invocation, Commissioner White.
It's me. Okay, will you please pray with me? Dear God, we thank you for the gift of your son and Easter that we just celebrated and all the great weather we've been having around that, and hope you're going to give us all the rain we're supposed to get at the end of the week. And please guide us and let us do what we need to do and make the decisions that you would have us make. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. All right, you'll join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of friendship among united cultures. You may be seated. All right. Okay, we are jumping straight into action items.
Oh, sorry. I don't have.
No, I'm not.
I'm just saying, I don't have any.
You don't have the new agenda and you can't look on here because it doesn't have.
Yeah, I'm poor. Do you need to do anything? Because you're just looking at it.
Well, no, I mean,
Okay, ready? I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2026-038, surface use agreement between City of Lovington and Tamaroa Development.
okay.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for consideration of this resolution. All right. I'm trying to figure out, what I was trying to do is try to figure out how you don't have to stand up here and stand through a lengthy whatever, if we have a lengthy. If we don't, then it's however you guys want to be able to add, or we.
Well, I know that there's a lot of back and forth between the lawyers right now.
Right.
Patrick has stated, and I don't know if y'all got to visit about the changes that were made in blue.
Briefly.
Very, very briefly. So why don't we just let you go?
Okay, so the first, let's see, the best way to start with this is that there was a surface use agreement in place. I think it started with Armstrong, went to the current operator. That surface location is in the corner of a circle pivot, and it's right out there by the park. And so there's certain things you take into consideration. And so what a surface use agreement does is helps define the relationship between the surface owner, which in this instance is the City of Lovington, and an oil and gas operator that's going to come onto that surface and conduct oil and gas operations based on either a lease or some kind of farm out that they have. And so the Surface Owners Protection Act sets out what should happen. So where we started with this was the old version of the surface use agreement. I've got a version of a surface use agreement I use that's sort of out in, let's just say, ranch land. It's pretty common, use it on a regular basis. A lot of the operators that are out there use it. They may tweak it to fit their program a little bit differently, but in general it's about the same. But the piece of property we're talking about today is inside the city limits, owned by the city. It's just south of the Maverick station. So it was purchased a couple of years ago. It was about 56 acres. And I think at that time, the city, there was a purchase price for it. I talked to a real estate agent. He said, basically, you're looking at 15 to 18,000 an acre is kind of what the value is. And so when I sat down to put this surface use agreement together, there are a couple different things that I was trying to take into consideration. One is that that piece of property has a different value than the corner of the circle pivot. That there's already been a well that's on that location when we purchased it. It was P&A'd. There's some remnants of a location and remnants of a road. So it's not pristine ranch land that's never had any activity on it. The city had some intentions about what to do with it. I think they were looking at maybe either putting the animal shelter out there or maybe a overflow pond, something like that to
Sports complex.
something.
Yeah,
So there are a number of different considerations that factor in. One of the other bigger considerations that we need to be mindful of is that if I put together a surface use agreement, let's say out towards Buckeye, and it's private surface, Mr. and Mrs. Rancher, they take a look at it, they're gonna get paid so much for a location, so much for a pipeline, a road, those types of things. And I'm pretty familiar with what the going rate would be in that area. The difference that we have here is that since it's inside the city limits and it is city property, the city also has the opportunity to benefit from GRT. So things that would happen at the well, different activities that would go on there, construction, operations, consulting, raw materials, well maybe not raw materials that are used, but tubulars, other things like that, have the potential to also increased GRT for the city. And that doesn't happen for Mr. or Mrs. Rancher out there. So part of what I took into consideration when I went through and looked at the two different versions is that alone. And so it's not gonna be the same GRT that we might see from the Albertsons, but it's still gonna be a pretty good chunk of GRT that helps define some of this. The other thing to take into consideration is from the, looking at Google Earth, and I haven't put boots on the ground from the well location over to the road, 483 Arkansas Junction. From their point where they're gonna start to drill, it's the southwest corner of that location, you're talking about maybe 500 feet of a road. And so when we take a look at prices, you know, maybe a power line that's there, or a pipeline that could be on the property, these prices might not be the same as what you'd see out in Buckeye, but there's a couple things to take into consideration, the GRT, and then also that pipeline is only gonna be a couple hundred feet long. So if they put a road in, that road might be 500 feet. And so when you calculated a damage amount, if you divided that by 16.5, which is what's a rod, and these are commonly pipelines, roads, power lines are commonly identified as the number of rods and what a payment is per rod. So if you took a look at that and you said it was 50 a rod, there's 30 rods in that 500 feet roughly, and so you're looking at, you know, like $1,500. If we went to 100 a rod, you're talking 3,000 for that payment. So there's not a lot of difference in there, and that cuts both ways. So I want you to at least keep that in mind. If the pipeline or the road was a mile long, you know, 5,000 plus feet, and you divided that, that's a much bigger number that you're talking about, difference between 50 and 100 or 200 per rod. So those rod numbers are, although they're important, they don't have the same kind of impact because we're dealing with a smaller piece of property. And so what I did is I sat down and went through, made some red line changes. You can see what is in yellow is what's added by, is it Tamura? Tamaro. They added some in yellow, and what they're doing at this particular location is paying $5,000 a year for the well pad. In the corner of the circle pivot, we got a one-time payment of $5,000. So here, the dollar amount is the same. We have a maximum size, which I think is acceptable to them so far. But it's $5,000 a year until that well is plugged and abandoned and the location is reclaimed. So if it's goes as planned, you know, they could probably give you an average lifespan about what that zone would be. But if you take a look at even 10 years, we're still at 50 as opposed to 5 that we were here in the corner of the circle pivot. At that particular location, Armstrong had a central tank battery that they were going to use. So this is a little bit different. We had to add a tank battery location. And basically you're talking about a little bit difference per year. It's $2,000 for the tank battery location. More than likely the battery is going to be on the location, but if it is within that 400 by 400, then it's not something that's extra. If for some reason it has to be out or accepts fluids from some other well location, and there's a separate tank battery location, then that part is covered as well. Most of it is the same. When we talked about new roads and power lines, we want them to maintain that road to the condition that the state land office would require. And like I said, it's 500 feet of road, so it's very short. I don't think, since we won't have multiple users of that road, you're gonna get a lot of people extending the margins of the road and then everybody pointing fingers about who should do the repair. So that should be pretty straightforward. I put some prices in. The prices that came back were, I think, good prices considering, number one, there's already been a road there. Number two, we're talking about a very short distance on both of those. And number three, we're also talking about GRT. So GRT comes in and really has an impact on how that's going to affect us. And if you just did some rough calculations, you might be looking at somewhere between 70 and 90, somewhere in there, extra thousands dollars for GRT. I put, and we'll get to that language here in a minute. So the going rate for pipeline out in the field might be 200 to 350. That person also does not get GRT, and that person also doesn't get a yearly rental on that well pad. So there's a lot of different things kind of factored in, but at those numbers and the fact that the road is already there, it's a short road, that's something I can live with. The other language that's in here, the general provisions, these are things that have been added to my standard surface use agreement since probably 1998, just based on things I've seen happen that you think people that would have common sense, you know, using firearms, starting fires, camping, fishing, all of the crazy stuff that I don't think we would ever see on that parcel of property out there, but it's there. We also have language in there. I think what's most important to the city is J, take all commercially reasonable efforts to benefit grantor in regards to all applicable gross receipts taxes. And so it's very possible that there could be a consultant and he or she is not able to bill out from the city, or some materials that they need to use that can't be billed out from the city. So that's why we've got commercially reasonable efforts. We don't want to hamstring anybody and say you have to use somebody that can bill from here. There could be an expert consultant and he or she's out of Houston or Oklahoma City or something else like that, but that gives us the best opportunity we can, I think, to recover that GRT. The rest of it's in here. There's the, you know, you take a look at what prices change, their amendment to that's acceptable. The only thing that was added in here that would be a deal breaker for me would be in the last paragraph. And so the Surface Owners Protection Act has a number of portions that deal with what the terms and conditions or some of the issues you should at least address for a surface use agreement, and we have those addressed. And then they also have some provisions in there if either party decides to breach a surface use agreement. And so this particular, and there's some other protections in SOPA as well that are beneficial for both a surface owner and an oil and gas operator. But the language that we can't live with is execution of this document shall operate as a knowing and specific waiver to all provisions of the New Mexico Surface Owners Protection Act. This will be the exclusive remedy between the parties. And so SOPA gives you a couple of different options. And so, for example, if they were going to do something on the property that is not in the surface use agreement and that we think would harm all 56 acres, we could perhaps go down and get an injunction. And so rather than lay out in here every single thing that the city can do, every single thing that the operator could do, SOPA says its remedies are not exclusive. And what that means is remedies outside of SOPA would still be available. So I think we need to leave that open, certainly for the city. It's a double-edged sword because those same things that are open and available to the city are open and available to the operator also. We can agree, and I think there is some language in the first part of this that was added. It's a little bit different font. Grantor and grantee acknowledge and agree this agreement, the surface use agreement, satisfies all requirements for a valid surface use and compensation agreement under the New Mexico Surface Owners Protection Act. That's generally the language that the companies want in there, to say both parties agree that the operator complied with SOPA as far as the notice provisions and also the information they were providing to help that surface owner and the operator put a surface use agreement together. So that's sort of the Cliff Note version of kind of how I look at this, what are the issues, how I take into consideration some of the numbers, and considering, you know, where it's located. I think one of the things you need to do is at least discuss, did we still have plans for that piece of property, and are those plans still there? And can we still do that on the rest of the property? This takes out a couple of acres. It's if you take a look at the location It's been there probably for 7 or 8 years. And so it's not, it was already there before we bought it, the P&A well site, so. And take into consideration also, GRT, you know, that property sells for a lot more per acre than ranch land does. And so it's not a direct correlation between the two, but I think that, the agreement as we have it, except for, the blue in that last full paragraph, the have and hold is acceptable. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And I know this is brand new to you. This is the majority of what I do when I'm not sitting in this chair. So don't think if I ask a question, it's gonna be a dumb question, because it's completely brand new. So the only dumb question is the one that you don't ask. And so I'm happy to answer questions for you, or, you know, why did we do this and not that? Help me understand something, or, you know, help you get through one of the questions or issues that you have with it.
And I have these couple of photos of the sites, if you guys want to look at
Oh,
those.
thank you, Crystal.
And you can see on those photos, that the company applies for an application for permit to drill. The location of where the well's gonna be spudded is on there. You have a rough idea where the pad is. And you can see that kind of white, sketchy looking location that's also covered by part of the pad is the former pad that was out there, and the former well location.
Crystal, I believe you were here whenever we purchased the land, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. I think
Yeah,
you are the only one, maybe, other than Evelyn was probably,
I think,
Oh, well, I
the
guess-
city clerk has been here longer than probably anybody.
Yeah.
yeah, well, but she's not here, so. I don't know how much you brushed up on it, but in your ability, what was the property, what was the general use of the property gonna be?
There were several different ideas when it was
Right.
purchased, that there could be, because I know they had purchased property behind the Lovington Inn, but they were looking for someplace to try to get funding to do a large sports complex, so we could quit using the schools complexes, right? And start having better sports complex for our youth. That was mentioned several times in the purchase of that. It was also brought up that we have bad flooding issues in the South Denko addition. And we also, grant writer and I managed to get that grant through FEMA to do a mitigation plan to help maybe move some of that water and put a retention area in there. There was also talk of moving the animal shelter to there, but then Laura found ways to make her property work where she's currently at. So there were several different talks of what could be done there.
Okay.
And the other thing that's important for me when I look at that, and New Mexico has what's called the accommodation doctrine. So if you bought a piece of property and you build a house, and then the oil company shows up and says, that is exactly where we were gonna spud. New Mexico law says, well, you got there first, and so they're probably gonna have to move off to a non-standard location and maybe directional drill, okay? But if you just have in your head, hey, I'm thinking about building a house, and they get out there before you do, well, now you're moving where your house is gonna sit, okay? For me, in addition to the GRT issue, I'm also factoring in there's already a P&A well site that's there. And so whatever we were to do with that property, and I think at the time that well was drilled, it would have been drilled with a closed loop system, so there's probably not a pit that's buried out there. But you still have the well bore, and I don't think an engineer would ever, he or she would ever let you build on top of that or near that because of issues. You know, the last thing we probably want to do is put our retention pond right around that and then have, you know, a direct pathway from the surface all the way down to groundwater or some other issues. And so that's something that factors in also. We bought it, it was already there. And so our plans would have had to accommodate that as well. if these guys said, hey, we want to be smack in the middle of this, that would be a little bit different. And then we would start talking about, does that take away the whole value of the property? What do we pay for it? Do you want to just buy it from us and we go somewhere else and build an animal shelter, sports complex? But when we purchased that, this well was already on that location.
City manager, just, I'm trying to get all of the facts. I'm sorry?
Should ask everyone too.
Okay, I will. Well, this is a different, whatever. Just, again, trying to get all the information available. And I probably have more because I've been more involved with it. But we also just obtained the FEMA, whatever.
FEMA grant,
If you,
yeah.
everybody got a copy, but why don't we talk about what that actually, how that impacts this piece of property?
I will defer to Crystal on that.
Okay, well,
So what we're looking at when we do this is a study to see how we could divert any water. This grant we got is no construction funds. It's not to build anything. It is strictly to look at, do the studies, do the hydraulic studies and all that, to find out how we could divert some of that water that flows from Avenue R down into, and from Main, into that Denko addition and potentially flood some of those homes. We have problems with it almost getting in a few of them every time it rains. So that's why we want to alleviate that problem for those residents. So that's, the study is to try to show where we can. And of course, this well site would be in that study too. We'd know that well site's there. Like you said, it's been there. There was one there before this. They're not changing location extremely, so it doesn't change our mitigation grant.
okay. Like I said, there's just been a lot of information that's been flowing, and I want to make sure everybody understands what the pertinence of all of this information and how it affects either this site or any plans for this site. Oh, Ms. Evan,
Got a question.
absolutely.
So this is one of the properties, when developers come, what is it, 15 acres or 56 acres, and the 6 acres that the city owns behind on MLK area, that's what we use to market what we do. People come in, are looking to build, looking to develop. So after you do this, or you go into a lease, are we gonna restrict what else can go in that area? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, I know housing is not gonna wanna go in that area because you have a rig there. What are we gonna use that property, or is it completely off the table for anybody that when we do recruiting? I mean, we have a lot of activity right now, and that 56 acres is one of, I have someone else that's looking at it too. I didn't know that this was going forward, but what are we gonna do if, is the use, are we not gonna use it for anything else? Can we use it for anything else? That's,
Okay. Patrick, I'm going to defer.
Well, I probably, considering it's industrial type activity, I don't know, there's always risks associated with it, just like there would be risks associated with, the cement crusher. I don't know if this particular formation has a lot of H2S or not a lot of H2S. I probably wouldn't want to put maybe a school there, but there could be some other activities, maybe like another oil field business that could go in there. Generally, those people, if they're working in the oil field, they're trained in safety issues, and so having that well location next door wouldn't be as much of a burden as maybe a daycare center. They might not have the same training. Kiddos may be more susceptible to something coming from the tank battery than adults. So I don't think it's a matter of just writing it off completely and saying there's no more uses. I think we just have to be a little bit more careful. So if a trucking company came in and said, hey, we truck a lot of fluids in the oil field, that may not be a bad spot, because every one of their employees probably carries an H2S meter, they're trained, they're knowledgeable, and so that wouldn't be as much of a risk to them as it would a new retail business or, housing, that kind of stuff. So I think we just take it into consideration.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah, so anything would be anything that we put out of the industrial park we would want in that.
Yeah, if it's gonna go in the industrial park, it's something that could go there. And then we would just have to go back and say, hey, we're gonna make some changes to that piece of property as far as zoning is concerned. So, and I think that, I don't know where it shakes out as far as the study, but I'm sure the study can factor in on other locations as far as, dry hole markers, those kinds of things.
Right.
So.
Okay, I had a conversation with Evelyn today, and I'm gonna ask, you were talking about, we are basically evaluating the sites that are in the industrial that have been and are may be added, we raised the GRT in those areas to the city versus the county. Is this already inside that zone? Is this piece of property already in that zone?
Yes.
Okay,
It's already in the, it's in the.
It's in the city
It's-
limits,
So
yes.
it would pay that
Right.
tax.
Whenever they did the 56, that's when they did the 9, that was a Maverick, everything was everything was
Right.
done together.
okay,
So
all
the
of
whole 56 is in?
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
as commercial, it was zone commercial when we annexed it, yeah.
Is there anything that you remember about the purpose of this?
I worked with James on this when the 56 acres was purchased, also the 15 acres that were purchased behind the Lovington Inn. I did work hand in hand with him on that. Behind the 15 acres behind the Lovington Inn was for a sports complex. I know that for a fact, that was a sports complex. Out at the 56 acres, it was supposed to be an animal shelter and fire station number 3.
Number 3.
It was fire station number 3 and it was an animal shelter in that area.
Okay.
That, I know that's what the use was for.
If you realize that all we're asking for is the northernmost tip.
I didn't know,
It's about 15
I just
acres.
heard about it this
Right
morning.
there in that
so I
area.
didn't know how much.
Just taking off the simple chunk of that top is like
Yeah.
50.
And like you said, you couldn't build nothing right there anyway because there's a well that's the P&A already right there.
Yeah, I didn't even
Right.
know.
It also is just on the back of the reservoir that's been there for, I know for 60 years, that has not been operated in many years other than, I think there was in the past 15 or 20 years, they did pump some water there and held it for just a short period of time for some use, and it may have been for that previous well, I don't know. We own the property that is immediately south of it, that's now Mr. Hernandez, Pete Hernandez's.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The water
we owned
station.
that property and I saw all of these wells drilled there, but that's been a long time ago and anyway, so it's in relation to the quick and easy use of the property, this is in one of the more congested, probably would be less utilized, except for I'm not gonna rule out the detention pond at all. I think it's closer to the north end. It's probably one of the easier areas that would not affect their site, nor their site affect our site, if that's where it was determined. Not out of the question, but anyway, so I mean, we've got a lot of information here. You gentlemen, anytime you want to question or whatever, please just let us know.
Well, if y'all have any questions, I'm only participating in the well. He's actually the manager of Tamaroa, Jeff Butler. And he definitely knows more about the whole deal than I do.
Yeah, if there's anything y'all have questions about, happy to answer. I will say, just on the south border of this property, there is an existing oil and gas well already as well, so it's kind of in it, and if you go just across the highway there, to the west, there's a number of oil and gas wells there, so it's kind of in the field a little bit, as it turns out. Oh, and the formation we're targeting does not have H2S. And,
I was going to ask that and I forgot to. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I appreciate
it's
you.
the same formation that was in the previous well,
Mhm.
the one in the crop circle that we drilled. And that gas has been tested and has basically no H2S in it.
All right, this is, if anybody's got any questions.
Are they okay amending it to fix the part Patrick doesn't like?
I don't know, I was not privy to that conversation.
I
so.
think Jeff said he was gonna, speak with his father and see if that's the case.
Yeah.
I guess what we could do, what I would recommend doing it this evening is approving,
What conditions or?
well, you could approve it with the changes that are made in, red, yellow, and blue, except for the last, two sentences that are in blue. And then we can kind of negotiate out from that. I kind of look at these and say, and I think it's probably a good idea. I'd rather not have a surface use agreement than have a bad one. Because a bad one kind of hamstrings you. And so, let's say, you know, and the way SOPA works is, it doesn't change whether or not they can come onto the property. So if their lease footprint comes out and touches the road, one of those public roads, they can get onto the property. They still send us out the notice. If we don't reach a surface use agreement, it doesn't prevent them from going to do that. But let's say we couldn't reach an SUA. Then we're gonna go back and take a look and say, okay, ranch land is 700 an acre. It's 25 cents a square foot for the well pad. This stuff is 15,000, and that's the low end, and that's the high end on ranch land. Well, where does that shake out if we just do the multiplication? What's the impact to us? And then we just make a claim for damages from there. So it doesn't completely isolate you. This isn't the one and only shot. It's the absolute best shot because it takes a long time to do it the other way. I've done it the other way, and it's only fun for me and the lawyer on the other side. It's not fun for anybody else. But that's what I would recommend. But it's still, at the end of the day, I would rather not have a surface use agreement than have one with that language. That would be just absolute deal killer for me because it hamstrings the city and what it can do if it needs to. It also hamstrings them, but, you know, it's probably more useful on our end based on what they're doing on the surface than vice versa. So
My 2 cents on SOPA, we've done it that way as well, and I can agree that the only people who enjoy are the lawyers.
yeah. But that's what I would recommend, is to approve this version, which has my red line changes, their yellow line changes. They made some changes in red to mine on prices. I'm okay with that, considering GRT and the fact that there was already a location there. We can accept their other blue line changes. The only thing we would need to remove, and you could just say, accept it as presented, but the last 2 sentences in blue to have in the whole paragraph need to come out, or that you're approving it without that.
Okay.
So, and then we can kind of negotiate from there. But that's, to me, would be a deal breaker for the city or any other surface owner, whether they had GRT issues or, GRT issues. And I think, you had a question, Liz, about the,
Injections or?
yeah, that just says, if for some reason they decide they want to do that, then the parties have to sit down and figure it out. Given the location, probably not. I don't know what the formations look like. The Devonian may be great down there, it may not be, but I don't anticipate that's happening, but at least it's in there. So if it is a consideration, then, we can discuss it, so.
Okay. Do you guys have any more questions?
Yeah.
Good.
Commissioner Perry, I know you're on there and you're getting a lot of information without probably having anything in front of you. Do you have any questions you would like to ask or any explanations you would like to happen in order to be able to vote comfortably?
Well, it sounds like to me that council is, for the most part, positive with the way the agreement is written, but he still has some areas that give him pause. So I'm considering that. So at this point, I don't feel like I have any questions. No.
Okay,
I do
Commissioner.
have a question.
Rodriguez.
We talked about a fire station 3 and then also a retention pond, I guess. where is that gonna be in reference to where the property that they're asking for? Is that gonna interfere in any way, shape, or form if?
No.
Okay.
Because like they mentioned, the previous well was there, the one that's capped and
Mhm.
not there, or, well, it's,
P&A.
yeah.
Plug and abandoned, right?
Yes, so that has been there. So that top 15, about 15 acres of that whole area is probably something that would be left out of both of those plans. It still leaves ample space for all the other stuff to happen.
Okay.
I'm gonna amend my motion to approve, with exception of the blue section of the last paragraph of the SCO.
How about we amend it to approve with all of the highlighted portions,
Approve with all highlighted.
except that last, yes.
Which would include all the other blue and my red
Blue,
line.
yellow,
And
and
there are
whatever.
changes to my red line. Because there are some changes on the prices, but they're insignificant considering.
So how do you want me to word that? Just approve it as is,
Approve it as presented to the commission,
presented,
There you
with
go.
exception
day.
of,
except for
The last two
the last two sentences in blue, but it's in the to have and to hold paragraph.
okay. Is that, are you
And
good?
you-
You can just say,
Except
So
last two
moved.
sentences.
right, just,
That's the way to.
as he said it.
So moved.
So moved, there you go.
There you
I'm
go.
recording it too.
Okay.
Okay,
Don't worry about it.
okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this resolution as submitted with the exceptions. Any further discussion? This would be a time if y'all have anything before we move on. Everybody's good with,
I don't think we have a problem accepting those two sentences either.
okay. Anyone else? Staff? Public comment? All
I
right,
just want to say real quick that the fact that the city is more than likely not going to be able to utilize that for anything anyway because of the previous things that's gone on, to me, it's a win-win for the city, I think, and I'm stepping out of the partnership box from these guys. If you can't do nothing with it anyway, if it's just gonna sit there, why not make some money on it? I mean, I think the city's getting a sweet deal on this, but that's just my opinion. Food for thought for you guys.
I'll make the comment that the current rules and regulations about remediating the surface and the way they enforce it in Mexico now compared to the past, if and when this well is cleaned up, it will actually be in better shape because we'll clean up part of that pad that's already there that never got cleaned up properly.
we understand, yeah. As we come along in the oil field, we hopefully have gotten a little more conscientious on the surface agreements, so. All right, I hear no further questions or discussion. So Ms. Nora?
Commissioner Ramon,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Mayor Roberts.
Yes. All right. All right, this moves us to our next item. Thank you, Jim.
I'd like to make
Yep,
a,
y'all are welcome to stay. We won't be here in another couple of minutes, so.
I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2026-043, acceptance of New Mexico
I'll try to do
Capital
that.
Outlay Grant Agreement SAP 25-J2402-GF and $610,000 of funds to purchase and equip a hydro evacuation truck for Lovington in Lee County.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this resolution.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, as you know, DFA has unfrozen our grants from 2025, the ICIP capital outlay. These two resolutions tonight, and what I did is, so you get an idea of what you're voting on, and I'm sorry it's at the last minute. Commissioner Perry, I'll give these to you next week. But basically, that's the standard agreement. Every capital outlay grant looks like that. Just so you know what you're voting on. And this is basically, we're accepting who approved to accept the funds under these conditions from the state. I don't know if Robert has priced out equipment yet. I don't know what the time delay would be. We have until 2027. I'm sure it'll be done well before then, because we're buying equipment here.
Tomorrow.
Mr. Paris, why don't you come up? I was gonna ask you to come up anyway, so this is a good time.
And obviously, these are for
He's
the water and
excited.
wastewater departments, these two
Right.
grants.
Okay, basically, the decision for the council or the commission is pretty easy. You know, we're just gonna accept this. All this is to accept money. All right, so my ask is that as you go through the process, I would ask you to be involved with the choice in the procurement office. I mean, whatever. Hydrovacs, I have a good bit of experience with them. There's a lot of companies that make them, and there's probably 2 companies, and most of those are Canadian, that are the better units. I have no idea what the price of them anymore is. It's been too long. I do know, I see these come across through the bank quite a bit, and it's in this realm. But please, let's choose wisely is my advice and request. I can't give you, I'm not gonna pick a brand and say this is a good one because I don't operate them every day. But, you know, these are expensive. You're gonna be using them hopefully quite a bit because I know they're gonna be helpful in our day-to-day operations. And so, I do recommend that you work with procurement, and if you have a preference and it's not the lowest or whatever, then if you need assistance, please come to this to this commission, and express your desires, and we'll figure out.
Yes, sir. We've had 4 people come out and show us 4 different trucks and stuff as we've gone forward. We, as of right now, I think we're gonna really looking at the backhoe truck, the same one, the green one that we've had. It's been a good truck.
Okay.
I think as long as we do the maintenance and everything else like it's supposed to, I think it'll be a good thing moving forward. It's probably 4 months out. They built it from scratch.
At least, yes.
So I myself have gone to the facility wherever they built it, 2 different places, and kind of, you know, put them side by side to what they do. I think the backhoe truck is right now, the backhoe, is probably the way to go. We had a couple of them come out of Florida also 2 months ago, and we had nothing but problems with those just at the plant. So, you know, I thought those come in with high-tech stuff. We don't need a bunch of that stuff, but that stuff goes out, you know, quick. Screens and everything, you don't need, in my opinion, we don't need any of that stuff. We need something that's basic, but good, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna last. We had some stuff come in, like I said, some guys with remotes, and this doesn't do us any good. When you drop one and it's gone. And some of those things are $10,000 for a remote, he says, so we don't wanna go that route. We're gonna go to the route to where it's like the green truck, it's got a hydrovac. You know, just simple, nice, simple. The only thing that we went with that is the Lovington colors instead of the green, like that green monster we have. So it's just kind of a white.
You can see it.
You can see it.
I saw it today, as a matter of
It's a
fact.
good thing, but a bad thing at times, so it's kind of
Right.
one of them deals. But I think that we've kind of narrowed it down. We've been really studying those for about a year since we knew this was going on. And we were to that point, I think, that we kind of, you know, with you guys approve it, you know, we're kind of on that thing of deciding which way we're gonna go with those. Just start there, we'll see what happens on that part.
We are happy to help, you know, get the equipment that you need or whatever. And all we ask is, hey, help us all spend our money wisely, because
That's what it's all about, you know, it's no sense, like I said, but there's some that come out with really nice, black with screens and all this good stuff, but it doesn't do us any good. I mean, sometimes we buy stuff here, I think, in my opinion, that's too big for what we need it for. Some of those trucks can't fit in alleys. I mean, you know,
I was thinking the same thing. I started to say,
You don't-
you're working in confined areas, you know what you're gonna need, so.
we don't need anything near that, it's just so big that we can, yes, you can put it out, you can stay there all day and work with it, but it takes you a day to get it in there. it doesn't do any good, so
All right.
just something like what we've got now.
Sounds good. Any questions? Any further discussion? All right, Ms. Norman?
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Mayor Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Commissioner Perry, are you there?
Yes, I vote yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ramon,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, I don't think there'll be any further comments on the next month. If someone does, we'll give you a chance to.
I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2026-044, acceptance of New Mexico Capital Outlay Grant Agreement SAP 25-J2403-GF and $300,000 of funds to purchase and equip a jetter truck and hydro evacuation truck trailer in Lovington and Lee County.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for this resolution. Any discussion, I think it's basically ditto to the last one, but. All right. Anything before we move on? Staff questions, public questions? Hearing none. Ms. Norman?
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Mayor Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramon,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry.
All right. With that, first of all, I would like to thank everyone for taking their time out. I know this is not a regular session, but we have a lot going on in the city, and since we all would rather not be here real late during the regular commission night, at least we can knock out some of this extraneous items to our normal operation. Thank you for coming out. Thank the staff for staying past normal time. And with that, the items of the agenda are exhausted, and we are adjourned.
Yes, sir.